Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, in the news today, more on the Russia-China relations. We've mentioned this. They're strengthening their military ties together, but against the West. And also, we're going to have a history lesson from the Patriarch of Constantinople and the latest on that devastating tsunami that hit Indonesia. Well, these stories and more. But first, BSR Cable Park, a Texas surf resort, is shut down after a man who visited the park suddenly became ill and died. Now, just 29-year-old Fabrizio Stabil complained of a severe headache after he had spent a day surfing at the water park. Officials fear it was there that Stabil was infected with a rare brain-eating amoeba.
Wow. When he went to the hospital, doctors discovered brain swelling and believed the deadly organism found often in fresh water had entered his body through his nose. While this hasn't been confirmed yet, the park has been shut down so health officials can test the waters. BSR Cable Park made this statement to the media. "We strive to provide the safest environment for our patrons. We are in compliance with the CDC guidelines and recommendations."
Dr. William Schaffner of Vanderbilt University Medical Center explained to NBC News a little bit more about the organism, Naegleria. He said this brain-eating amoeba is very, very difficult to treat. It eats your brain tissue. Now, over the course of 56 years, there have been 143 known infections, Katan, but only about 4 people have survived. That's a fatality rate of 97%. Definitely not a rate you want to hear your doctor tell you, the rate of survival.
Yeah, and definitely not worth the risk for a day of
absolutely
fun. Yeah. Well, moving away from man-made waves to those made in nature, this time having a devastating effect on an entire country. A 7.5 magnitude earthquake shook Indonesia to its core, and if that wasn't bad enough, it caused a devastating tsunami that took the people completely by surprise due to the fact a heavily talked about warning system has never been completed.
Well, the before and after satellite pictures of the city of Palu reveal the scope of the destruction. Now, much of the city on the Indonesian island is covered in mud and debris. Now, the nearly 20-foot high waves reduced both mosques and malls to piles of rubble.
Now, the twin disaster has left almost 50,000 people homeless. Many desperate survivors flocked to the airport just 3 days after the tragedy in hopes that they could escape the hell that their town has become. One woman told reporters they have not eaten in 3 days and they just want to be safe.
Well, rescue efforts have been underway, though moving slowly since the country has little heavy equipment to work with. Now, one woman was rescued after spending 48 hours buried in the mud and debris. Now, the frantic search for more survivors continues at the site of what used to be the Roa Roa Hotel. It is believed that as many as 50 people could still be buried underneath it.
The grim task of collecting the victims of these twin disasters is underway as brightly colored body bags line mass graves in the town. Many coming to see if their loved ones are among the dead there. While the death toll is known to be in the hundreds already, it could rise into the thousands because some of the hardest hit areas have yet to be reached by rescuers.
Well, moving back to the Middle East now, we have learned that the Iran's Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, or the IRGC, has said it has attacked an area east of the Euphrates River inside Syria. Now, this was in retaliation for last month's terrorist attack that took place in Iran.
It was during a military parade in the southern Iranian city of Avaz, where dozens of people were killed when terrorists attacked the parade. Among the victims were civilian spectators, including a 4-year-old boy. The IRGC vowed revenge and now are claiming they have achieved just that using ballistic missiles fired into Syria itself. They believe they have killed and wounded a large number from the terrorist organization they hold responsible.
Well, have you ever wondered how Bartholomew I became the leader of the Orthodox Church? And how did he come to reside in the country of Turkey, a country that is predominantly Muslim? Well, we turn now to our field correspondent Larry McGee to shed some light on this leader of Christianity and what's happening to his faith. Larry?
There have been recent efforts among fragmented elements of the Catholic Church to unify and strengthen under the current papal administration. One of the key players in that effort is Patriarch Bartholomew of Turkey, who sat down with reporters recently to acquaint the world with the current state and history of his church.
His official title is impressive. His All Holiness Bartholomew, Archbishop of Constantinople, New Rome, Ecumenical Patriarch. Ecumenical means universal, and worldwide, 300 million Orthodox Christians look to him for spiritual guidance. We first met him in Istanbul. It was Easter, and worshippers from throughout the Orthodox Christian world had come to celebrate Christ's resurrection on the holiest day of their calendar with the man who they see as their Pope. And while His All Holiness may occupy the ecumenical throne, his quarters are a far cry from the Vatican. His office is cramped and relatively austere, his desk littered with papers. No Michelangelos here. All that's left of a Christian empire, once ruled from Istanbul, is a complex of 9 buildings, tightly squeezed onto less than an acre of land.
Now, is this the Vatican of your church?
Well, our headquarters.
It's called the Phanar, and it's been the heart of Orthodox Christianity since 1599. His All Holiness promotes an informal atmosphere here. There's none of the ritual that surrounds the Pope in Rome. The neighborhood that surrounds it used to be Greek and Christian, but today is predominantly Muslim.
I think a lot of people would want to know, Your All Holiness, why the leader of so many millions of Orthodox Christians in the world lives in a country that is 99% Muslim.
Because we are here before this country becomes a Muslim country, much earlier, since the very beginning.
Since the very beginning of what?
Of the foundation of our church, of the Church of Constantinople.
And in the beginning, Istanbul was called Constantinople, the ancient city on the Bosphorus, where east meets west. But the city's richest and most renowned Christian churches are museums today, meccas for tourists, not for worshippers. From the Cora Church, with its fresco of Jesus, whose eyes seem to go right through you, to the Hagia Sophia, the first great church in Christendom and an architectural wonder, built 1,000 years before St. Peter's in Rome, and for centuries, the most important church in the Christian world. Fast forward a few centuries, and it's hard to find Christians in Istanbul. This church holds 500 people, but during its Sunday services, its pews were practically empty. It was the same everywhere we went. At the turn of the last century, there were nearly 2 million Orthodox Christians in Turkey. 1.5 million were expelled in 1923, and another 150,000 left after violent anti-Christian riots in Istanbul in 1955. Today, in all of Turkey, there are only 4,000 Orthodox Christians left.
We are treated as citizens of second class.
You're treated as second-class citizens.
And we don't feel that we enjoy our full rights as Turkish citizens.
If you're treated as second-class citizens here, and you are Greek, why don't you go to Greece?
Because we love our country, we are born here, we want to die here. We feel that our mission is here, as it has been for 17 entire centuries.
17 centuries.
17 centuries. And I wonder why the authorities of our country do not respect this history.
The patriarch then brought us back to the 21st century and Turkey, to his own backyard. He took us for a ride on an island off of Istanbul in a carriage with a police escort. The patriarch wanted to show us that Muhammad's message of tolerance has not been received by the Turkish authorities. His prime example, the Halki School of Theology, the only Greek Orthodox seminary in Turkey, empty and abandoned. No priests, no prayers. The Halki was closed down by Turkish authorities after passage of a law banning private higher education. That was back in 1971.
It's a pity and a shame. It's a crime to keep such a school closed, unused, for no reason. Why?
Reasons of state.
Reasons of state.
As a consequence, the church can't train new priests, potential new patriarchs. As a consequence, the church can't train new priests, potential new patriarchs. As a consequence, the church can't train new priests, potential new patriarchs, who under Turkish law have to be born in Turkey. It's as if Rome closed down the College of Cardinals. It's as if Rome closed down the College of Cardinals. The hallways where 100 young seminarians roamed are desolate now. The library's priceless collection of old manuscripts lies untouched. Walk into a classroom, and it seems as if the students had just gone home today, not 38 years ago. The patriarch was born, Demetrius Archondonis, in Turkey.
Christos Anesti se olmuş.
Like all Turkish citizens, he served in the Turkish army. He was ordained at the age of 21 and elected ecumenical patriarch in 1991. But the Turkish government does not recognize the ecumenical or international part of his title. To them, he is merely a local bishop.
And this is the continuation of Jerusalem, and for us it is equally a holy and sacred land. We prefer to stay here, even crucified sometimes.
Do you feel personally, Your Holiness, that you are being crucified sometimes?
Yes, I do.
Katan, Jeff, back to you.
Interesting location, like you mentioned there, being a predominantly Muslim country, but leader of the 300 million plus followers of Christianity faith. Well, China is urging the U.S. to correct itself and withdraw sanctions imposed on it by them. Otherwise, they will face the consequences. That's right. China is not pleased by the sanctions imposed on its military. Washington said that those measures were taken because China purchased weapons from Russia, which breaks a U.S. sanctions law punishing Moscow with sanctions, who's accused of meddling in the 2016 U.S. elections.
Well, Moscow and Beijing warned the U.S. that it was playing with fire after it placed sanctions on the two countries, which just deepened mistrust towards Washington. Now, the recent sanction by the U.S. towards China's military was placed on the Chinese Equipment Development Department and its director. Now, the director and other officials are said to have been involved in deals to acquire Russian S-400 surface-to-air missile systems along with fighter planes.
Russia's Sergei Lavrov was critical of the U.S., saying that more sanctions against Moscow comes as no surprise. Russia hopes to make the S-400 missile systems its main export weapons and plans to deliver some to Turkey next year. Well, at a meeting with the Finnish President, Putin called the U.S. sanctions senseless and counterproductive. He said, "We hope that our American partners will realize the uselessness of this kind of politics, and we will start constructive cooperation." While Russia and others don't agree with the sanctions, of course, others in the U.S. think they are necessary.
Well, one-third of Russia's military personnel, along with 1,000 aircraft and 80 Russian warships, are partaking in a large military exercise. Now, China has sent around 3,000 troops along with Mongolia. Russia thanked the two countries for participating in the exercises. Emily Ferris with the Royal United Services Institute said this demonstrates its alliance to the West with China, along with what it's learned in its military operations in Syria and eastern Ukraine, and how those upgrades are being applied to its military operations now.
Russia's invasion on Ukraine prompted the U.S. and its allies to put sanctions on Moscow. Those sanctions in place since 2014 have damaged Russia's ability to get military components from its Western partners. So, as a result, its military is going through a 10-year upgrade. And to pay for those parts, well, Russia's going to have to find alternative partners, Ms. Ferris said.
Well, slogans for the exercise read, "Friendship for the sake of peace." But there are some tensions, such as the Belt and Road Initiative, that bypasses Russia because China is interested in countries like Ukraine and Belarus and using its infrastructure as a gateway to Europe. So Russia may have some suspicion as to what China is planning. Now, Jim Mattis said that he sees little in the long term that aligns China and Russia. These military exercises come amidst threats of more sanctions by the U.S. towards Russia.
Well, take a look at this next video of the history of the Russian Orthodox Church and its leader, Kirill, as he tells of struggles within its union of faith and why it's now going through certain changes in the world of religion.
When I was enthroned patriarch, February 1st, 2009, at the feast of St. Mark of Ephesus, Mark of Ephesus is a person who alone saved orthodoxy from the Union. When Constantinople was weakened, Emperor of Constantinople believed that the answer lies in the military forces of Western countries and that they will save Constantinople from the attack. But without the blessing from the Pope of Rome, no one wanted to go to protect Constantinople. And to save Constantinople, Emperor decided to submit the Orthodox Church to Rome. Patriarch of Constantinople agreed with most of the bishops, and they went to Italian cities Ferrari and Florence, where the council was held. At this council, Patriarch and bishops signed union with Rome. Only Mark of Ephesus did not sign. He believed that there can be no union under fear. There can be no union because of pragmatism. Most important, there can be no union under threat of schism. They united with Rome and crushed the unity of the Orthodox world. Saint Mark endured all that misery that fell on Orthodoxy. He remained brave at that council and did not sign the union. I was consecrated bishop many years ago at the Feast of the Victory of Orthodoxy, the symbol of victory over every heresy. And I was enthroned patriarch at the Feast of St. Mark of Ephesus. I don't see it as coincidence. There are many coincidences, and some will say it means nothing. For some people, it does not matter. For me, it does a lot. I am here to protect the purity of Orthodox faith and to oppose any heresy and any shame. We are obligated to protect Orthodoxy, as fathers of the Seventh Ecumenical Council did. As Patriarch Methodius and Empress Theodora with the bishops did. As Saint Mark of Ephesus did. And as our new martyrs and confessors of the Russian Church did.
Katan, it's really interesting on the history of some of these religions, seeing what the Roman Catholic Church and all the changes that they're going through now with the scandals, and really we've talked about and reported in the past on how so many people are leaving the Catholic Church because of the dishonesty they see there and the unwillingness to punish these pedophile priests. And you know, it's interesting to see these churches of different religions. It's almost like all of these religions are at a major turning point or changing point here, and the world is really having their eyes open to that.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Well, if you'd like to find out more about these stories, you can contact the House of Yahweh, and when you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and monthly newsletter. Here's how. You can write the House of Yahweh at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, Yahweh.com, YeshuaHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. We would also like to encourage you to visit our website at YPNnews.com. If you would like to email the House of Yahweh, you can do so by emailing them at info@yahweh.com. Any international calls, please call the number that's on your screen now. And once again, if you have the time and you would like to research one of the greatest Bible study tools on the market today, it's absolutely free. Go to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com. Go to the search bar, type in any word or phrase, and watch pages and pages of information come up, guaranteed to occupy your time with reading the scriptures and increasing your knowledge of the words that are written there for us in these holy scriptures.
Well, Jeff, we can see that the world is at a time where there is a lot of tension and a lot of war. But if our viewers are interested in learning about unity and peace, well, make sure you stick around, because up next is a teacher of peace, Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.